get going, everybody. Please stand for the pledge. I
I
pledge
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Arcuri?
Here.
Mr. Bova? Mr. Bradsky?
Here.
Mr. Core?
Yep.
Mr. Coyne? Mr. Delia?
Here.
Mr. Ford?
Present.
Mr. Kane? Mr. Karam?
Here.
Mr. Mutolo? Ms. Sesney? Here. And Mr. Wallace?
Yes. And we'd like to welcome John Wallace back to our board.
Thank you.
And Dave Corp for his first go-around. Committee reports, do you have anything, Jim?
No, the report is in your binder, just real quick.
I'm sorry, I jumped ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We have the draft minutes, February 27, 2017.
Just turn me on.
Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion.
A second? Any corrections, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Sorry, Jim.
That's okay.
I don't have a pen over here, so I'm already lost in this thing.
The report's in your binder. It's for the second month of the calendar year. Just real quickly, consumption is a little above for the first time in quite some time, above what we budgeted in the previous year. Water sales is greater than our budget to date. And cash flow is a little down, but it's the result of the beginning of the year. We pay out things like property and liability insurance, workers' comp insurance, so we'll build that cash back up. So we're looking good as we get through the first quarter of this new fiscal year.
Any questions for Jim?
The only other thing I was going to mention was this past week we completed our audit, our annual audit that's done. At least they did the field work. We're very vigorously working on trying to finalize it. Hopefully we'll have it out for the state by the end of the month. But we're required to have it done by the end of the month so that we can report on it to the state, and then we'll have the final for you with the opinion probably in the next month or so to present to the board.
Does the board have to review it before it goes to the state?
No.
Okay.
No. But what we do is we actually send it electronically.
All right.
There's a whole bunch of things that we have to click boxes on, and they require a certain format. So we're not only doing just the audit, we're doing other items that we have to submit as well.
Questions for Jim? Thanks. Pat, your report?
I have a few items and then some items for executive session as well. But first thing I want to mention is that with the snowstorm that we had last week, for those of you that might not have been aware, we were out of this building for about a day or so. The mayor elected to close the building, and no surprise, I think everybody else in town was closed. But Thursday night at home, I received a phone call from Mayor Palmieri downstairs in the city of Utica, and he explained that they had what they considered to be a fairly serious situation because there's roughly 2,000 or so fire hydrants within the city of Utica, and they were all buried in snowbanks 5 feet tall. And obviously that's a huge risk if there's an active fire and the fireman can't even find a fire hydrant, much less you have to dig it out. So they had, the governor was in town, I think Wednesday or Thursday of last week, did a conference up at Rome City Hall, but he did take some emergency measures for the area here, and among those measures were bringing in a bunch of personnel from the Air National Guard and the Army Reserve to help out with some manpower, as well as a bunch of equipment that they sent down from the State Emergency Management Office from Albany. With all that being deployed to clear the streets, but also to start clearing fire hydrants, the mayor asked if we could assist the Utica Fire Department and the National Guard, and they also had the city DPW and the city Parks Department. So we were sort of the fifth prong of that attack on the fire hydrants. And so Friday morning, we sent out about 20 or so of our personnel and teams and provided a lot of assistance. So in roughly 36 hours or so, we had about 95% of all the hydrants in the city were cleared out and dug out and ready for use. So our guys did a great job.
Did we
And we
incur any
actually,
overtime over that?
I'm sorry?
Did we incur any overtime?
About an hour. There was a few guys that were left out just to finish up a quadrant that had been assigned to us.
Just 1 hour?
They started Friday morning, and instead of calling them in at 3:30, we were almost done with the area that we sort of carved out for ourselves. So they finished that by 4:30 or so. However, I will say that we also provided up here great engineering support. Our department up here provided all the mapping and updating and locating, and that was being disseminated from here to all the other responders. So it was truly a team effort between us and the city and all the outsiders. State Emergency Management team was down here. State Homeland Security folks were here. I sat in 3 meetings on Friday downstairs. People from Long Island were up with Homeland Security, so it was truly a state effort. But the reason why I bring it up is because there is some possibility that, depending on the emergency declarations, we may be eligible for some FEMA reimbursements. And so the way that's being coordinated right now is through county emergency management, but even straight time hours would be reimbursable. So the fact that we used our daytime payroll on straight time, even doing this rather than doing our own maintenance, would be considered eligible costs as well as equipment use, fuel, our engineering folks up here. But added to that mix, I wanted to point out that so far as of middle of the day today, we've identified 21 fire hydrants that were damaged during a storm through various means. And so the cost of replacing and repairing those is all going to be totaled in as well. So we're going to have additional time and materials that will be adding to that cost. There's a financial threshold that the county has to hit in order to even be eligible, at least under one component of the total eligibility. So it's not a given by any means, but we are going to be putting in our numbers and looking to get reimbursed. If that happens, we'll certainly let you know. Yes.
Are all the hydrants on GPS?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we prepared actually a web-based map for everyone to use. As hydrants were located and cleaned out, they could click them, turn them green instead of black. That's how they, basically the core of the city has coordinated.
It was a good operation, I think.
Do we have any other issues with the snow in terms of distribution pipes? Any problems with water at residences or business?
No, not really. Just impeded our access to our buildings so that crews, if they weren't helping with hydrants, were plowing out, our various pump stations and everything else. That's, except for a couple of main breaks, that's pretty much all that the crews did for the 3 days last week.
And fortunately, while we had all those guys out digging hydrants, we didn't have any main breaks on Friday. So we didn't have to divert anybody, we didn't have to bring them back out without rest. So it worked out about as well as it could have, I guess. At any rate, I point this out because we will be seeking reimbursement. The chances of it probably aren't that good, but we'll certainly have our hand out looking for it. Next thing I want to mention is that most or all of you by now saw an email that I sent out 2 weeks ago after the Oneida County Executive Tony Pacenti did his State of the County address. In that, he floated the idea, no pun intended, of merging county sewer, the Park County district that's operated by county government, with the Mohawk Valley Water Authority. Chairman DeLea and I have discussed it a little bit. And, it's something that we'll sit down and discuss, obviously, but there's an awful lot of issues that need to be addressed, and all of that would have to be taken into context of what our core mission is here in providing drinking water. But thus far, there have been no meetings, and we're waiting on the county executive at this point to determine his own timetable on when he wants to at least sit down and discuss the idea. And when that happens, the chairman and I will be going to that meeting together. In the meantime, I've asked our staff, our senior staff here to begin thinking about issues that we would need to address under that kind of a scenario, so we had a really clear picture of all the things that would have to be considered, everything from our legislation to financing, a whole host of operational issues. And I just wanted to assure you, regardless of whether you see this in the media anytime soon or not, I'm fully aware, and obviously the chairman will make it a point to be sure that this board is included in those discussions. And obviously there's a major role for this board to play in any kind of decision like that. So we certainly won't get too far ahead of ourselves in this. But as I said, it's something that's been put out there now. So I think right now we wait and see, and we at least participate in the initial discussion and see where it leads. Yes?
The biggest concern that I'll have, and I'm in favor of it, I have, as you know, because I've been talking about it myself, the fiscal reports that we put together as part of this, the biggest cost is the consent order. And we need to be very aware of the impact, because the cost is, may likely move from local and county to this new unit. And that's $150 million that nobody's got. So we need to be very aware of the consent order and the impact on the discussions.
Right.
I think it's apt from a public service point of view. Forget each board, from a public service point of view, it makes a lot of sense for the community to look at this. There's an economy of scale and everything else, but it's a big fiscal impact.
And, you know, and as I said, I think maybe in my email, but it's a common model. When I go to conferences, or
very
any of us go to conferences, probably half the participants in these conferences across the country are water, wastewater utilities.
That makes
So
sense.
there's a lot of reasons why it might make some sense, but we have to explore it. and see.
Where did the number 150 come up?
It's gonna actually closer to
That's what they-
200.
Yeah, that they agreed to it.
Yeah, we've agreed to do all these things over the next 6 or 7 years,
Yeah.
and it's a very large cost.
This would be a major undertaking.
Major.
So, I mean, this is not something that we're going to
Certainly not going to be
solve in a
decided this
couple
year.
of days.
No.
and
Oh, no.
I remain very leery of
Sure.
the entire.
You know, this would be a multi-year
Operation.
process, to say the least, no question about it. I think we all know, though, that the governor is very eager to see consolidation across the state.
And there's a lot of infrastructure money
If
coming
he
up.
wants to look at a project like this and...
Can you give us 150 million?
Yes, that's exactly, he would be very, very much invited to do
And
so.
some new mainstay?
Yeah.
That's another 150 million.
It will take 300.
Speaking of funding, as you may or may not know, there's some discussion at the national level of creating a national infrastructure fund. Water and wastewater would be a component of that. They're talking about quite a bit of money. And I recently was in contact with Senator Schumer's office with his Syracuse staff about putting a request in. My understanding is that Senator Schumer would like to highlight several projects in upstate New York as the discussions move forward at the federal level, and that one of those projects could be our new raw water line that would come from Hinckley Reservoir down to our treatment plant. So Dick helped put together a proposal that has already been sent to Senator Schumer's office to fund that project, and that piece of it would be about $50 million. So if, you know, if the federal government does put together this kind of a fund moving forward, we've already got a place marker hopefully being carried forward by Senator Schumer's office. But next week, I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. for 3 days at an organization called AMWA, Association of Metropolitan Water Agencies. And it's a water policy conference they do every year in D.C. where they invite the speakers from EPA and both the House of Representatives and the
Anybody
Senate.
left?
Pardon?
Anybody left?
Yeah. Well, the new EPA administrator is actually the keynote speaker on Tuesday. But I've been in contact with Congresswoman Temmie's office to try to sit down with her for a half an hour while I'm in D.C. So I'll be carrying a similar request as the one that's gone to Senator Schumer's office, and try to make sure that that's held in the proper place on the House side of things as well. So I'll let you know how that goes. Last thing I want to mention is that tomorrow morning, our water quality director, Phil Tangora, and I are going to be over at the State Building meeting with the DEC. We have not concluded discussions yet on what is called our Speedies permit, and that's the environmental discharge permit that allows us to backwash out of the, quote, back door of our treatment plant down to our lagoons whenever we have to backwash the filters, and then eventually that effluent is discharged to the creek. And so that's a permitted operation, and the permit is under review for renewal, but we are seeing now an awful lot of factors in there that are new or more strict than they were in the past. This discussion's been going on for over a year, at least, right? 2 years?
I mean, the process really started in 2010.
Well, yeah.
The
But I mean,
initial
we-
application for the renewal, but
Right.
yes, but we
Over the last 2 years or so.
in deep for about 18 months, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be over there tomorrow with a number of consultants that have been assisting us in various studies that DEC has been asking for data on. And one thing we know for sure is that the conditions in that permit are going to be much more strict than they were before. And require much more careful monitoring and tighter operational treatment plan. But I think we're getting near the end. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I anticipate with probably 90 days, I think we'd be at the end of this.
So that'll be a major milestone for us once we have that new permit in place. We can stop spending money with all these consultancy estimates.
I know there's nothing in play right now. I mean, nobody's really quite sure what's happening, but cutting a third of the staff out of the EPA is going to affect not just the federal, but the state level as well. And it's going to affect timing, it's going to affect, there's a lot of new regulation that's going to come in. I'd like the board to receive from the staff some sort of, maybe a monthly summary of how things that are happening will impact us or is impacting us. It's going to put a lot of what we might have planned over the next few years in a merry-go-round that we've never experienced before.
Right.
You know, we complain when things are slow. Well, you know, depending on the regulation, we have a third, 5,000 staff disappearing, and
Sure.
that's going to really affect us and everybody else in the country. So I'd just like to be kept up to date. I don't want to read about it in the paper.
Yeah.
I'd rather get it to the board before we start.
The conference that I'm going to next week is one that I actually haven't gone to for 5 or 6 years because there wasn't really a whole lot new going on.
Yeah.
But now there's so many changes going on. This is a great time to be heading back down to that conference. As I said, the brand new EPA administrator is going to be the keynote. There'll be undersecretaries from EPA presenting on new positions from the EPA, as well as 3 senators, 4 people from the House of Representatives, all talking about their ideas on, from Environmental Committee to Budget and Finance Committee, all thoughts on funding, on regulatory changes. So the whole purpose of this conference being put together is to find out exactly, the early mornings of what we're going to be
Right,
talking
and
about.
I understand that, and that's
So-
good.
Well, what I was going to say is when I get back, I'll provide an overview of materials that.
No, I understand. I just don't want it to be a snapshot, and
Yeah.
then next year it happens again.
Yeah.
On a regular basis, we need to know what is happening on the federal and state level that's going to affect us, and not at the time that we're talking about some expenditure and then getting caught up.
Mhm.
I'd just like to get more information on a more regular basis.
That's a good idea. Be happy to do that. That's all I have for now, unless anybody has any additional questions for me.
Any questions for Pat? Any old business? Any new business? We need to go into executive session for a personnel matter and perhaps a contractual matter as well. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.